The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Peter did not know what to say, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice, "This is my Son, the Beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen, until after the Son of Man had been risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what this rising from the dead could mean. The Gospel of the Lord. Spirituality 101 is basically this: there is a God, and it's not you, and it's not me. And God is God precisely because he is completely self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't. We do. We all have needs that we have to attend to if we are to survive, much less thrive. In fact, the whole of our being, by its very nature, is a vast collection of neediness, simple and complex, easily attainable and completely out of reach. We're needy. I mean, just think about the needs that you have: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual needs. You are needy, and so am I. God created us with needs, and he passes on to us the responsibility of tending to those needs. And doing that outweighs almost every other responsibility that we have. Now, on the surface, that sounds selfish, but it's just common sense. You cannot help anybody until you've taken care of yourself. In fact, caring for yourself first is preparation for Christian service to others. Here's what Jesus said about this. This one time, a teacher of the law asked him, "What is the greatest commandment? What's the greatest thing ever?" And without hesitation at all, he answered like this: "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself." As yourself. Jesus teaches that our very ability to love others rests first and foremost on our love and care for ourselves. We often deny that we are needy. I mean, just think about the times where you knew in your heart of hearts that you needed help. And it wasn't until the pain or the problem got so big or so unbearable that you finally took care of yourself and asked for help. When we deny even a single one of our legitimate needs, we are not moving towards health. In fact, we're moving away from it. So we're taking this season of Lent to take a closer look at just how needy we are and how best to meet those needs, and as a result, how to live healthier. Last week, we also talked about some of the temptations that we face when it comes to our needs. And we all face temptations when it comes to our needs. So let's just recap them a little bit. The first temptation is meeting a legitimate need in an illegitimate way. We will be tempted from time to time to do something that we know is wrong in order to meet a real and honest need. For example, you really have to pass the class, and so you cheat on the exam. That's meeting a legitimate need in an illegitimate way. The second temptation is meeting a legitimate need by taking a shortcut. Now, with our needs, we are often tempted to settle for what is just a shadow of the real and legitimate need. And so we're tempted to take the easy way out or take the shortcut. Maybe you have found yourself really tired lately, and so you start skipping the gym and sleeping in instead. That's meeting a legitimate need by taking a shortcut. The third temptation is meeting a legitimate need by worshiping it. We turn our needs into virtual gods. We make them the whole of our life. We give them all of our attention, our finances, our affection, and our ability. In fact, we pursue them at all costs. This could be, for example, making the whole of your life all about sports. Okay? You're meeting your need by worshiping it. Well, today, instead of talking about all of our needs, we're going to talk about just one of them. We want to talk about our greatest need, the single most important and essential need that every human shares. And this is our need for God. Now, I know what you're thinking. I knew he was going to say that. He's the church guy. This is church world. Of course he was going to say that. But maybe you're thinking, if my greatest need really is for God, then why don't I feel that more deeply or at all? Why don't I wake up every morning with a deep desire to connect to God, at least half as strong as my desire for that first cup of coffee? It's true. Many of us go long periods of time without talking to God or even thinking about him at all. So to maintain a habit of prayer might actually feel like a Herculean effort. It certainly doesn't feel like a need. And there are people that we all know who seem to have it all together. They're happy, they have a great job, a fantastic family, and God is not part of the picture. Well, what's up with that? Where's their need for God? Well, we're going to answer those questions by turning to one of the most well-known characters of the Old Testament in the Bible, Abraham. In fact, he is counted as the patriarch or the father in faith of three of the world's major religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. When we are first introduced to Abraham in the book of Genesis, we learn that he is married to his wife Sarah, and they have no children. It's a tremendously sorrowful burden for any couple who wants to have a child but cannot have one. But in the culture of antiquity, it was a huge problem socially and economically. And these two, Abraham and Sarah, they're old. They're advanced in years. And so the situation is hopeless. Anyway, at a certain point, God chooses to establish a relationship with Abraham. And we're going to look at that today. But to look at it, we need to back up a couple of chapters from where our reading started, okay? Just to give us a bigger picture and fuller context. We're at the beginning of Genesis. So we read this. God says this to Abraham: "Go from your country and your family and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make you a nation, and I will bless you, and I will make you great." So if Abraham steps out in faith just a little bit as God asks him to, well, then God is promising him three things, right? God will make him a nation, God will make him great, and God will bless him. None of which could happen if Abraham does not have a son. So God is promising Abraham what he really wants: a son. And Abraham takes the bait. He leaves the comfort of a very comfortable situation, and he risks it all for his heart's greatest felt need. Maybe that's you. And maybe that's your story. Maybe that's why you're here at church today. You didn't come because you want a relationship with God, or because you came to worship Him in spirit and in truth, or because you have a profound love for the Eucharist and you just want to spend every minute of every day here at church with Him. You came because you want something. And if that's you, you are no different from Abraham. Maybe your need is different. Maybe you want a job, or you want a kid, or you want a spouse, or you have concerns about your health. But you came because you want something. Well, here's what we need to know about that. That's fine. It's perfectly okay. That is a perfectly legitimate reason to be here today. God accepts us, however and whenever we're willing to come to Him, in all of our need, no matter how big or how small. God comes to Abraham in his need, and He promises to meet that need if Abraham promises to step out in faith. And he does. Sort of. We read, "So Abraham went, as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him." Now let me tell you about this. So Abraham obeys God. He does. But he minimizes his risk by taking his nephew, whose name is Lot, just in case, right? Just in case he really does not get the son that he's waiting for. So he's got his nephew there who can serve as an heir or who can even help him out. And we see this throughout the story of Abraham. He believes in God and he does what God says. Kind of. He's always got a backup plan or a plan B, just in case. Abraham is our father in faith. But if you read closely, you will see that he's far from being a perfect father. Now, I don't know about you, but I find that very encouraging. We don't have to wait to be perfect in order to follow God. We can follow Him imperfectly with all of our imperfections, and we can follow Him in all of our neediness. And it's true that Abraham's hesitation delays the promised blessings. But eventually, he follows in faith, and he grows in faith, and he becomes more and more faithful, and he receives this blessing. He's given a son whose name is Isaac, which brings the greatest challenge God will give him, because at a certain point, God says, "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering." We read that in our first reading today. And it's shocking, for sure. But not as shocking as the fact that Abraham actually set out to do it. No questions asked. It goes to show how dramatically Abraham's faith and trust in God had grown. He's willing, get this, he is willing to sacrifice his only son, the son he had waited forever for. Right? So Abraham and Isaac, who's probably only 12 or 13 years old at this point, make their way to the proposed place for the sacrifice. And as they go, the boy asks his father an important question. Now, this verse, for whatever reason, is removed out of the lectionary that we read from today. But the verse is important. You need to see the whole context, okay? So, on their way, the boy asks his father this question. "Here is the fire, and here is the wood. But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answers, "God Himself will provide the lamb." This is another indication of faith and trust. Right? God will provide. The story concludes. He bound Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called and said, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God. Crazy story, but with an unmistakable point. Through his very needs, God draws Abraham to a place of incredible faith and trust. So much so that Abraham stands today as the father in faith of most of the people in the world. This is why we can actually miss out on our need for God. If you're not feeling it, it's probably because you're currently busy trying to meet that need in another way. And so there are times that God will allow certain things to happen in order to redirect that need back to Him. Often, it is when we are deprived of physical needs, or we're being emotionally challenged, or we're in a health crisis, or experiencing loss, or even grieving, or facing death. It is in those moments that we find ourselves urgently turning to God. Maybe if we've been ignoring Him and meeting our needs in other ways, we ourselves have delayed the blessings that He wants to give us. But He still blesses us, and He always wants to, at least eventually. So here's a simple encouragement for this coming week. This is my challenge for you this week, and it really is as simple as can be. Each and every day, just say, God, I need you. Wake up in the morning and just say that, God, I need you. Just say it every single day this upcoming week. In fact, let's practice it right now. 1, 2, 3. God, I need you. Say it again. God, I need you. One more time. God, I need you. Easy as that. But do it every day for the next 7 days. Because just by saying that, you'll already be living in the deeper recognition of your greatest need. And know, friends, that knowing your needs and taking the time to meet them is not a selfish thing. Not at all. It is living in the reality that you and I, we are children of God. And He's made us needy so that eventually we'll come to understand that our greatest need is for Him.